Hello, my name is Colby Sharp. I am a fifth grade teacher in Michigan. Welcome to my channel where we try to help kids fall in love with reading. If you're new here, please consider subscribing. It would mean a lot to me, and you can get notifications anytime I post something new. 2020 has been a challenging year. I don't need to get into all of the reasons why, but I just want to thank you for being here. I want to thank you for doing the work. I want to thank you for continuing to read, because we know how important reading is to get kids to read. The more we read, the more in turn they will read as we share the books we fall in love with. In this video, I'm going to talk about three different things. I'm going to talk about my 2020 reading year, what was successful, and I'm also going to talk about the challenges that I had in 2020. And then I'm going to set some goals for 2021. I think it's important to look back and then to look forward. So let's get started with our challenges for the 2020 year as a reader. Please let me know down in the comments below what challenges you had as a reader. For me, I struggled to read picture books. I love picture books. They bring me so much joy, but I couldn't read them. I could read, I probably read 5% of the picture books that I would read in a normal year. Usually I probably read 500, 600, 700 picture books, and this year maybe just a little over 100. And part of it was I just had a hard time getting into the books that I was reading this year. And then when you do that with a picture book, you have a hard time getting in. By the time you start to be ready to focus, the book is already over. So I really struggled with that this year. Ugh. The second thing that I struggled with as a 2020 reader was professional books. I finished maybe 2 professional books this entire year. I'd like to read at least 6 every year. I'd like to read at least 1 every 2 months, but it just wasn't happening this year. That's so frustrating. So number 2 for me, professional books, it just didn't go very well. And the third thing that I struggled with as a reader in 2020 was being connected. One of the things I love about having YouTube videos, about being on Twitter, about being on Instagram, is that I get to connect with other educators, with authors, with illustrators all over the world. I struggled with that this year. I wasn't as connected. I wasn't on top of the new exciting books that were coming out. I wasn't following the kidlit news as well. Most of the time is because I was refreshing things like the New York Times and just trying to get the latest COVID updates and trying to figure out what was going on in my community and our local newspapers. And I was trying to figure out, where I need to wear a mask to? Can I run outside with a mask? Can I not run with a mask? Can I go to the grocery store? Do I have to wash my groceries? So I wasn't able to connect with the people that bring me joy and the people that I learn from. And that is something that I'm really disappointed in. That 2020 was a challenge for me. While 2020 wasn't the best year for my reading life, there were some things that went really well. One of the things that went really well in 2020 for me was graphic novels. I read more graphic novels than I have ever read in my life. I kind of see what all the buzz is about. I've always loved graphic novels. I've always shared them here on the channel and in my classroom, but I never, I think, truly fell in love with graphic novels like my students did. And through books like When the Stars Are Scattered, Dragon Hoops, Flamer, there were just so many graphic novels, and I could feel accomplished as a reader. I know that sounds like I'm a 10-year-old fifth grader in my classroom, but I could actually read a book in a couple of days, and that felt good, and I felt the pages turning, and the pictures were there for support when I was struggling to focus. So reading graphic novels was super helpful for me as a 2020 reader in the middle of a pandemic. Another thing that I had a lot of success with as a reader were young adult books, especially in the summer. I could just read a great story and get lost in it. And then every time that I would get back into the book, I wouldn't have to, every time I would start reading again, I would have time to read. I wouldn't have to start a new book. With a middle grade novel, if I have some reading time, I can finish that in a couple days. But with a young adult novel, a lot of times they're a lot longer, and I could get invested in the story. And when I would pick it back up, it just kept going and going like that. And I think that really helped, having something a little bit longer to read in those stretches in the summer. And when we were teaching from home, that helped me to stay focused in books. And I usually probably read 4 or 5 young adult novels. And I don't know, I probably read between 10 and 15 in 2020. So that's awesome. The third thing that I found success reading in 2020 were I fell in love with some nonfiction, and I don't usually do that. I usually try to read nonfiction so that I don't feel guilty when I look back on my reading year and I didn't read enough nonfiction. But one of my favorite books of 2020 was All 13 by Christina Soontornvat. That book about those boys stuck in the cave in Thailand, that was my favorite book of the year, one of my favorite books of the year, and I absolutely loved it. The graphic novel, When the Stars Were Scattered, I loved that book. There were so many great nonfiction books that I read in 2020, and I usually hardly read any. So yay, there were some good things in 2020 for myself as a reader. Goals for 2021. Whoa, a new year. How about that? Number one, I want to get back into the habit of reading lots and lots of picture books. I got an advanced copy of this book, Watercress by Andrea Wang and Jason Chin. I think this book like snapped me out of my picture book funk. It's one of the best picture books I've ever read, and that's hard to say after just reading it twice. But I loved it. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this book could be honored by the Caldecott Committee. This book could be honored by the Newbery Committee. I just love it. And I started talking about it on Twitter. And then my friend John Shu talked about how reading this book made him start getting into his mock Caldecott list that he makes on Goodreads every year. And it's just like I was instantly connecting with readers. And I just forgot about, maybe didn't forget, just struggled with how much picture books and these stories can connect us and bring us closer to our reading community online and in our classroom. And I'm so excited for picture books. Thank you, Watercress. Thank you, Andrea. Thank you, Jason. Oh my gosh, read this book, pre-order it. It's so stinking good. So that's number one for me. I want to get back into picture books. I forgot about how much joy they bring me and how much I love them. Number two, grown-up books. I need to read more books for grown-ups because I like them. I don't have to, I love middle grade fiction. You can see like they're lined up here in my basement and I just can't get enough of them. But I also like grown-up books. I like reading books about running. I like reading books about like business. I don't know why, I don't ever plan on starting business, but I'm just really interested in business and how it works. I like grown-up nonfiction. I used to read like all the time, maybe one a month. And I have read maybe one grown-up nonfiction book in the last 5 years. So I like to try more grown-up books, probably mostly nonfiction, mostly in the things that I'm interested in. I really like reading stories about entrepreneurs and people who start companies and people who go accomplish amazing things in athletics. And so hopefully I can read more grown-up books in 2020. This is actually one of the 2020 grown-up books that I want to read. It's called Get Your Butt Out the Door, a 365-day motivational runner's companion by Randy Stepp. Randy is a running store owner in Michigan, and he's had this really popular running blog for years, and he's kind of turned his ideas into a book. And I'm really excited to read this over the course of the next year. And like all the proceeds from this book go towards helping to save Running Fit, a huge running community. They got a few stores in Michigan, so I'm really excited to support them and also to read that book. Whew. Breath. The third thing that I'm really excited about as a 2021 reader is to get back into the professional books. I feel like I'm ready to, I have this high flex thing where we're teaching in person and online at the same time. I don't have that figured out, but I miss learning as a teacher. Not only does it help my students, but it also helps my just energy in the classroom. And I want to make sure that I have that energy as I continue to learn. And I can apply the things that I learn in just about any professional book to what's going on in my classroom, even during this wild time. So I'm part of the Nerdy Book Club community. I am one of the co-founders of Nerdy Book Club, and we decided to start a book club. And one of the things we're going to do in that is we're going to read more professional books. And that's so exciting for me. And the first one we're going to read is Colleen Cruz's Risk, Fail, Rise, A Teacher's Guide to Learning from Mistakes. Can you think of a better book to kick off 2021 with? I can. So we're going to be reading this on the Nerdy Book Club in January of 2021. I'll put the information down in the description of this video if you are interested in joining us. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you have the best 2021 year. I hope it is a year filled with books and reading and joy. I know we all could use a little bit of that in a new year. My name is Colby Sharp. I hope you have an awesome-tastic day.